delivering cleaner, faster, more reliable and more affordable travel for everyone. Improvements we have made include new and improved bus routes, including more evening and Sunday services and services with higher frequencies, new bus lanes and junction improvements which have seen bus journey times decrease quite significantly, more affordable fares on top of the national fare cap and easier ticket options, improved waiting areas with more bus shelters and better facilities like real-time information, an overall better passenger experience with CCTV on all buses and more routes with next stop announcements. Passenger satisfaction with bus services has also increased over this time, reinforcing the idea that if you make something good, people will use it. Passenger satisfaction with bus services, my apologies. We have now received a further allocation of funding from 26 to 30 and are currently formulating our delivery plan. I will be pleased to hear from members if you think we are doing the right things and what else we could do to further encourage people to use the county's bus services. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Nikki and Jeremy, off you go. I know you're very enthusiastic about this.
Done it? There we go. Sorry. Just like to kind of reinforce what I think a success story this has been for Norfolk in terms of public transport, particularly with our passenger numbers and public satisfaction with the services. And just like to thank members really for their support in the schemes that we've delivered. We did ask members for ideas for our 25-26 delivery plan, which we're still working through. So yeah, very welcome to hear what you think we want to do over the next 4 years, really.
Sorry. Members, I think we've all got bus issues. So Martin, you were first one, and then Chrissy, then Brian.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So, well, my issues are good issues regarding the bus service in my division. I get many comments from wherever I go about from members of the public, my residents. And I had my surgery in Halston. People come see me and tell me how good the buses are, or how much they're improved. The service has improved. In my village of Dickleborough, I see the youngsters in the morning getting on the bus ready to go off to college. Sometimes there's often a dozen there. Sometimes in not the best of weather, so it's about time they got a decent bus shelter. So hopefully they'll see the grants available. But also the refurbished bus shelter in Halston has gone down really well. It looks very smart, and it's the modern way to go for everybody that uses the buses. They know when the buses are coming, the time. So really, really good feedback about that. And also I heard this week about the tap on, tap off. How good is that? So hopefully that will be across all the buses this year, I believe. So I believe you're doing a brilliant job with the funding you've got. So congratulations and keep it going. Thank you.
Sorry, Chrissy next, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see an improvement in the buses. I use the buses myself a lot, and I'm glad in this, I finally know what the tap on and tap off is for. It's been a great debate on the bus, what is the tap on and tap off is for. So can we have a bit more publicity about why it's there? Because now I'll remember to keep my card in my hand rather than put back in my purse. So when I tap off, I might actually save some money. Because I've been paying the £3 all along, because I keep forgetting to tap off, as do most of the bus people on the bus. Do you know what I mean, quite frankly? If we know we're saving money, it might still, stick in our brains a bit. But I'd like to know how many more bus routes are viable, and what makes them more viable, and how we get our data and everything about bus improvements and things like that, where our data actually comes from, with the population. But, I think also that there could be some thought also on the buses themselves, because I've been a lot of conversations about bus travel recently and why people take cars, and a lot of the reason is because the amount of bags they got. So in some places, could there be more room for baggage? because by the time some people got their wheelers on and things like that, that gets a bit crowded, to be honest with you. And, you know, in general, how could we make the experience better so people can actually be more practically able to use buses? I mean, you know, because obviously I live in Norwich, and we have a lot of bus routes, but I still think where there's a lot of people, like, for example, going shop in Angle Square, it's because the amount of bags they got, do you know what I mean, could make them get on the buses. Obviously, there's other reasons why you wouldn't want to use a bus. But I was sort of like thinking about like the council, a more holistic approach, lens and things like that. And I was thinking, you know, there's a lot of things that could be done, but it all comes down to money. And like, I was reading that it's £36 million we're expecting the government to overwrite the North, you know, the Norwich Western Link, and which we seem to be still addicted to. And I think to myself, well, 36 million, that's a lot of money, you know. We're trying to cut like 40 million. And we could, if we could use that in a better way for our roads and our infrastructure for buses, maybe we could got youth to have free rides and things like that, particularly for those in the rural areas. It just amazes me, really, when we don't think of things in a more holistic way. It's great we've got money from government, but, you know, it's just not commonsensical, do you know what I mean? We're continuing to mention that we've got to do it. Next year we'll probably a total different council. And I just think 36 million, that is a lot for a government to overwrite, and a lot of money to be spending on something that probably would never have happened anyway, do you know what I mean? And how better could that have been used for Norfolk, particularly for the buses and things like that, that's so needed in these rural areas and things like that. It's just, you know, for me, looking at it as a holistic way, it just seems, it's a lot of money.
No Western Link, no buses running, Christy, at the moment, so, yeah. Statistically, the 26%, you've given us in the proposal 10 things that I count that we've done. Do we have any information which one of those have been best for producing the result of extra people or not?
We don't really have that level of detail because, you know, we just collect passenger numbers from the operators as a global entity, but we have done a bit more analysis on it recently, and it looks like the growth has come more from the interurban routes, which kind of makes sense because we've put a lot of money in increasing frequencies on bus services. So those services from North Walsham into Norwich or from Fakenham to Kings Lynn, we've increased frequencies, we've put on evening services. So that's where the biggest growth has been. I think it's because it's making the bus service a more attractive offer. You can come into work, stay later in the evening, or you can use it a bit more. You know the bus is coming in half an hour rather than you've got to wait another hour or 2 hours. So that kind of makes sense. From our transport focus survey, I think the tipping point really is the cost, I think, you know, and the national fare cap has gone down really well. And I think if the fares were to increase, that might then start to level off. It didn't take a big drop when the national fare cap went up from £2 to £3, but I think it is money in people's pocket that makes the biggest difference. From what we've seen from passenger survey results. But yeah, in terms of how we break down that 26% in what is the key thing, we really don't know.
Park and ride, is that in the 26% as well?
It is, yes, that's an overall figure for using buses.
Any intention of more park and rides?
No.
Good answer. Sorry, I've got Brian next.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. As already been said, I think Norfolk has done pretty well over the last few years in terms of the level of government investment coming into the county. If we look at transforming cities in the Norwich area in the last 3 or 4 years, and the difference that has made to the city's bus services, a good, reliable service, which I think is well regarded sport. Many of those communities which perhaps historically have been very isolated and cut off, and it's good if finally we are in a situation where new services can be provided in those areas to connect towns and villages, and making sure that they are more accessible than they have before. So, I mean, it's all very welcome news indeed. Obviously, there are challenges that lie ahead, as we well know, in terms under no illusion that things are going to be easy moving forward, and we've also got to be aware of implications such as devolution and LGR, and we've got to something that we're going to have to face up to in the future. However, at this stage, as has been said already, I would like to thank Nikki and the public transport team at the county. I think they've done a great job. They've done a great job. And, you know, they've certainly engaged well with bus operators, and we now have vital new money that has come in to boost the county's bus services. And as Councillor Plant has alluded to, the 26% increase in bus passenger usage in the last few years, which has bucked the trend nationally, which has been very much the other way. So I think we really have made a significant amount of progress. I don't think anybody underestimates the challenges that we still face, and obviously a lot that still needs to be done. I think in particular about the cross-county route planning, as I said, could be disrupted by changes in governance with the devolution, and there's still a real risk that rural areas with their patchy connections could continue to be, is measuring how the 49.5 BSIP investment is actually improving passenger outcomes, particularly in terms of reliability, affordability, and journey time. That's the first question. Second question is, can we have some confirmation about how the money will ensure that rural stops, travel hubs and interchange points are upgraded to meet requirements, and whether sufficient funding for that is allocated in the 2026 to 2030 plan. And finally, again, it's been referred to already in the discussion, the desire to see more evening services introduced, if at all possible. I know that progress has been made. We've talked about 17 new routes that have been introduced recently, but I hope that obviously within the restraints that clearly do exist, that we can hopefully expand the number and range of evening bus services that we have across the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you got a quick reply, Nikki? Have you got all the questions written down?
I've got all the questions written down. I mean, we do measure several different things. We do measure the reliability of buses. We've been doing some analysis on the website. Rural stops, we are allocating, I would think, quite a lot of money to rural stops. It's very, very important in a rural area. Martin mentioned Dickleborough and waiting in the rain. So yes, we've had a really good response from the scheme that we set up, where parish councils could apply for funding, where we pay 80% and they pay 20%. So we've had about 153 applications for rural bus shelters, which is really good. So yes, that's a really important thing. And evening services, once again, they have gone down really well with people. So I think we will probably be looking to put some more of those in the new plan.
I think it's really important when we do put these services in that they become sustainable, because what we don't want is for these services to disappear once the money disappears. We want to make sure that the money we're putting in is putting in a service that can continue well on into the future, because it's a sustainable way of putting it in. What we don't want is to just throw money at something where when the money's gone, trying to make it as sustainable as possible.
Jim?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. A mix of questions and observations. Initially, congratulations on the monies and the work and the successes that have already been logged. All of my thoughts tended to be coloured by the word rural as I read through the report. You mentioned the 26% growth, so it's largely inter-urban, so a slight increase or in numbers in rural transport actually would be quite a big number percentage-wise. So I don't know whether we're disappointed or happy with the rural aspect and how much the monies and the spend has had an impact on the rural areas going into the urban areas. Specifically, there's talk at the moment, if I may, about a bus lane in Kings Lynn, and I get the nudge aspect, but there are sometimes bus lanes which are just, people have to go in by car because they're coming out from the rural areas and they have little choice. So I hope that if we are doing things like that, a lot of the impetus is coming from the bus companies who are finding them being held up rather than the nudge aspect, which isn't going to work if you do have to get into your car in the morning to get in. On page 78, there's reference to accessible boarding points. And I raised these points when we had a pre-meeting, so officers knew it was coming. And it's great that there are such a high percentage are accessible. Sometimes they're on one side of the road. And I don't know whether we talk to the bus companies to be conscious of that and whether we can take advantage of the fact that people might be on the other side of the road, conscious of crossing is dangerous, but they're using the other side because it's accessible because they can't use this side. I don't know whether that's been introduced or thought of or talked about with bus companies. And finally, the passenger satisfaction survey, which is referenced on page 82. Difficult that the ask is, it's also the non-passengers we need to hear from. Why are you not using our bus services? Are there monies we can put in a certain direction which will help with that problem? So I'm hoping the surveys can be expanded to take that point on board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Nikki?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point about the non-bus users. We need to know how we can encourage them to use the bus and what's stopping them. So I think using some of the revenue funding for the next year, we'd probably commission a survey, try and get to some non-bus users. One of the best ways to do that is to go around the parish councils and talk at parish council meetings. So we know we might want to be engaging with yourselves and with parishes just to see how we can get access to those non-bus users. And the accessible boarding points as well, another good point. I think we need to think a bit more broader around not just making the stop accessible, but how to get to the stop and then making sure you can cross the road when you get off the bus at the other end of the day and you can cross the road safely. So I think we do need to think about expanding that programme to make them even more accessible. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you mentioned in a couple of your questions around the bus operators, the bus companies as well. So just to reassure committee, one of the reasons we did so well with that initial bus service improvement plan money was the enhanced partnership that we set up with ourselves and all of the bus companies that operate in Norfolk. So that's worked really well over the last few years. So in terms of the capital improvements that you've seen on the ground that we've implemented, I think all of those came direct from the bus companies and the bus drivers who identified which parts of the network were giving them the most challenges in terms of bus delays or impacts on reliability of bus services. So we've worked really closely with those bus operators. We had the last meeting a few days ago, earlier on this week. So those regular meetings happen with the bus operators. So yeah, they feed into every aspect of what we've developed over the years and what we'll be developing and implementing going forwards as well. Thank you.
David?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the support and help which the officers give in keeping the bus services going, particularly in my area, obviously, which is Heather said, Cringlefoot, etc. And particularly when there is a problem, which we had just before Christmas, one of the bus companies decided, well, the bus companies stopped doing the bus for the Little Melton school students, pardon me, which put us in a bit of a panic, but the officers worked extremely hard. They managed to get a non-proper bus, a single-decker bus to hire for the first term thereafter, so that we could transport the students into the school, which was over a Christmas period. It was a really, thumping good result. Needless to say, there were two people who whinged and moaned, but never mind. The interchange off on Roundhouse Way and on Cringleford is operating very successfully, I believe. It will be good when they actually finish doing the roadworks there and producing that pedestrian crossing, which is due to go in for the students crossing there. You mentioned about local villages, etc. One in particular I have is Barbara, which doesn't seem to be on a, delicately to put this, it doesn't seem to be on a place to or from. You either go to Barbara or you don't. So therefore a bus service coming from Watton or coming from the Longwater Lane side has to divert off the road to Barbara to pick up any particular passengers that might be there. How do you look at allocating, as Graham says, it's got to make money, or it's got to at least prove, but how do you actually allocate that you're going to go to a particular place? How do you work it out?
We kind of look at the population of a parish to see, what kind of level of service it probably should have, like a shopping journey to work. Then we work with local operators to see if they can weave it into something, because that's obviously the cheapest option rather than putting on a whole new service. Or there could be an option for a dial-a-ride service or some kind of link service to link them into the next biggest place where there would be a regular service. So it's kind of like working through different options of what we can do without putting on a whole new service just from one village into Norwich, for example, because that wouldn't be sustainable. It's trying to weave it into other solutions is what we try and do.
Chris?
Thank you, Chair. Well, my offering is going to be sort of a bit of a collection of perhaps contradictions, but it's a mix of personal thoughts, observations, and believe it or not, I go around village halls, churches, pubs, and I get the opinion and views of residents on these things. So I'll just skip through very, very quickly on this. At point 2.2, we've got bus priority. Something which may be of concern to a number of people will be giving buses priority over other traffic is important to make people's journeys by bus as quick as possible. I wonder what the people using their cars would think. And we've heard in this chamber many, many times about Norfolk being a car county, and we've obviously heard the challenges in rural areas as well. Just nipping over to the Chair's points on, that's passenger numbers. What increase has there been in bus miles in order to achieve those numbers? So if passenger numbers have gone up 26%, but bus miles have gone up 50%, that's perhaps not as exciting as it might first appear. So then quickly on there, in terms of the nature of the journeys that are taken, it seems to me that the cheaper the journey, in terms of the subsidised cost of it, the more people are likely to take it. So that also suggests to me that they aren't people who would ordinarily be taking that journey by car. These are opportunistic journeys, if I may call that. Well, we'll pop into town. So I have a little bit of concern, and that's why I think we need to dig deeper into the stats. If one of the objectives is to get people out of the motor car into public transport. And then finally, just wrapping up with the bus service improvement plan map, and again leaning into what Jim has said, I look at that and I look to the left of a blue line which covers the area that I represent, the far west of the county, and it doesn't look very exciting. So in terms of the buses there, here's a real contradiction. We have a number of young people who struggle to get into further education because they generally want to head to Kings Lynn. They can't involve themselves in extracurricular because of the timings of the buses coming home. And then obviously there's the social aspect for youngsters in the rural areas as well. I don't think we're ever going to plug that. But I think, you know, if we were able to look to direct some attention on that, that would be appreciated. Although I understand quite clearly the numbers are in and around Norwich. But what is it we're looking to achieve? Do we just simply want more people on the bus, or do we want to improve a service across Norfolk? Real contradiction. The amount of buses I see with nobody on them. And Emneth, in particular, is a rural service centre. This is something that's flagged up to me on a regular basis. Sometimes we'll see two buses, one behind the other, and they've got nobody in them, and they're following each other around the village. At best, we might see 4, 5, 10% occupancy. Now, I appreciate that's only a clip of the bus's overall journey, but I suspect in quite a large parish in the West, there are things there that aren't quite right. So it comes back to Graham's point about the sustainability. Are we running bus services currently that no one needs and won't be sustainable going forwards? Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki, have you got?
Yes, so bus miles have increased probably by about a similar amount, by about 23% the bus miles have increased, because that's covering everything. It's not the miles around the county, that's, you know, the evening services as well and the frequency. So the bus miles have increased by about 23%. And I do understand your point about villages and doing more services and making it sustainable. But I think we do have a chance now to look at more rural areas and what we can do for more rural areas. In terms of the buses that are empty, obviously Emneth is on the Cambridgeshire-Norfolk border. I think there's a couple of different operators, and most services are run commercially. So it could just be that those two operators are competing with each other. We don't have much of that in Norfolk itself, but that's obviously part of Cambridgeshire as well, isn't it? And generally buses they're full at peak times, and then the operator will just use that bus the rest of the day because that's the cheapest way to do it. So generally, double-decker buses are empty during the day, but they will be full at peak times, and that's why the operator would use it, and then they just carry on running it through the rest of the day. That tends to be their operating model, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So just by extension of my previous ramble, obviously we're fortunate enough to have a train station relatively nearby in Downham Market. I'm not really thinking that we're really plugged into that with our bus network, which you would imagine that we would be, particularly when we bring that sustainable transport into so many of our policies. Thank you.
No, I agree, and we're actually looking at that right now, how to link people to Downham Market train station.
Yeah, so some of the points that I would have wanted to make have already been made, so I won't waste time on those. But I do think that it's important to think about young people getting to apprenticeships and further education and so on. So it would be really nice to have a lower cap on the fares for younger people travelling to college. It's great getting the older people out on the buses. That's really good for health and well-being, but it's also really good to enable young people to get to training and work. So it would be good to see that as an initiative to try to ensure that people set out at the start of their life accustomed to using the buses. Low school fares as well, in order to also address the school run problem, and we need more buses after work and after college. So there are, I mean, it was nice to hear Martin talking about Dickleborough, which is actually in my division. It has an absolutely fantastic new bus service, but then just the other side of the road in Burston, they can't access that. So we really need to be ensuring that there's joined up stuff so that other places can also access these things. The other thing that I've been trying to promote is the idea of having bicycle racks at rural bus stops. Again, to encourage school kids, the secondary school kids to get to the bus stop to take the bus to college. That's not really been happening as part of the bus shelter funding, and so I would like that to be taken up as an initiative from the bus team rather than wait for the parishes to ask for it, because they don't necessarily know how many young people would be able to then think about using that as a way to get to school and college. So I think, and the other issue is enabling people to reliably buy a house or take a rental property in a village. We do need some kind of long-term commitment to providing the bus service that will get them to work, if possible.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything, Nikki?
Yeah, just that, you know, all the commercial bus operators, they do offer reduced fares for young people up to the age of 19. Older people, you know, if you're over the age of 19 and going to university, you won't benefit from that. But our revenue funding wouldn't stretch to such a scheme for a reduced fare for all young people across Norfolk. And obviously the older persons concessionary travel scheme is a national scheme that we have to do.
Brian?
Thank you, Chair. It's really following on about improving rural connectivity and making sure that any money that comes into the county reaches parts of the county that other strategies perhaps haven't reached, the so-called sort of Heineken effect, if you like. I wondered if we perhaps could have kind of further look into where those areas are and how we could go about improving the services. And the second point is on concessionary passengers, which is referred to in the report. Again, perhaps a further look at what is perhaps stopping some of those passengers from using the buses, the barriers that they're facing at the moment, and what interventions might usefully be considered to improve things. Thank you.
Your recent survey covered some of that, didn't it? The survey we got here, you were asking people why they did things or why they didn't. And that's a fairly recent survey, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a rolling survey that goes over a whole year, and we have people, you know, come and talk to passengers on the bus. We have done a couple of campaigns on the concessionary users to try and encourage them to use the bus more, but we don't really have any detailed information as to why they're not come back to the bus since the pandemic, really.
Jim?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of minor reflections on Councillor Dawson's contribution. I wasn't sure if he was questioning the subsidy aspect or not, but I am totally confident that Councillor Plant has got sustainability top of the list. If that service isn't sustainable, it ain't going to be happening. There are other happy accidents. I didn't like the word opportunistic. It's not behind why we have these bus services, but there are ancillary benefits. And if, when I get older, I have a choice between ordering online and getting 6 deliveries come to me, or I'm on a bus, I'm engaging with people, I'm going to town, then I really hope I do the latter.
Social animal, yeah. Nikki, any thoughts on that last two? No? So I've got nobody else looking to speak. So we'll go to the recommendations. Review the delivery of the bus service across Norfolk and how they're meeting residents' needs. I think we've covered that one, and the survey did that. To review the recent improvement made both capital and revenue funded, and comment on whether they have met the objectives in the bus service improvement plan. And I think Nikki thinks we have on that one. To consider the impacts on passengers, particularly in relation to customer satisfaction. Well, that survey, I think, again, does that for us. Now that we have our funding allocations for 26-30, suggestions, proposals or considerations to the Cabinet member. for how bus services can be further improved. And I think the resounding thing in that, we've done really well, but that more rural areas are still bus deserts, and everything we do. I did ask about park and ride, because I see that as a hybrid, that somebody hasn't got a bus going through, but they can get to a park and ride and then go. For my own sake, if I'm going into Norwich, it's simpler for me to go direct to Norwich than to go to the nearest park and rides, because I have to do a detour. So I'm sorry to say I'm not going to do that most of the time. So I think in the future, maybe, I've got 2 unintended park and rides in my division that I know of. One is a very big lay-by, where people park for the day, catch the bus opposite. One is a shop, where they don't check who's parked, and you find 3 or 4 cars in there all day. The bus stop is just opposite. I don't know, the hybrid seems to me just something that we perhaps should look closer at, in that, you know, park car, park and ride. So that's my little thing on there. Members content that we've covered all of those points? Yeah. So we go on to the next one. Item 9. And we have the appropriate councillor, county cabinet member.
Thank you, Chair. Did you want me to kick it off?
Yes, please.
No worries. Good morning, colleagues. Happy New Year, everybody. I think it's the first time I've been back to R&D for this year, and it is. But yeah, good morning, everybody. This new environment strategy for the Norfolk County Council is part of our cooperative policy framework and supersedes the policy endorsed by full council in 2019. This policy outlines Norfolk County Council's commitment to protecting and enhancing the environment for today and future generations. The environment is one of the County Council's 5 key strategic priorities. It focused on 4 themes. 1, how will we manage our own estates for the environment? 2, the natural environment. 3, the historic environment. And 4, enabling and ensuring responsible access to the natural and historic environment. We have produced a draft strategy which outlines how we will deliver and monitor the ambitions for our new environmental policy. But just to continue on a little bit, as we all know, Norfolk is very fortunate. We are custodians of an extraordinary county, rich in natural landscapes, historic places, and communities that care deeply about both. That good fortune comes with responsibility, and today's environment policy and environment strategy sets out how we intend to meet it. This is also about stewardship, balance, and long-term thinking. It's about protecting what makes Norfolk special, while supporting a thriving, accessible, resilient county. I welcome the work by my team of officers that have done an amazing job that has gone into developing this policy, and I look forward to the discussions ahead, and I have my team here with me now, Chair.
Thank you. Steve or Wendy, would you like to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it is a Norfolk County Council policy, and for the first time we've created a strategy which really shows how we will deliver that policy and monitor outcomes. We've had extensive engagement across the County Council over the last year, so I'm very pleased to be able to bring it to I&D Committee today.
And can I just mention the castle again? Members, some of us went to it prior to it opening. I plead with everybody to go and see it. It is quite amazing, and the money we spent on it was well spent. That's just a plug for the castle. Members, Jim first?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. A couple of questions, if I may. 2 big subjects, which are featured on page 169. It says, where possible and viable to deliver more than 10% or BNG biodiversity net gain. I wonder if we could have some more detail on that, because where the council has been a developer in the past, it has been difficult always to get affordable housing contribution to the level that should be applied, and fights have been had in order to achieve that. So I just would like confirmation that we are going to aim for greater than 10%, and perhaps some examples. I don't know whether the biggest one at the moment is probably the Westwinch Housing Access Road, so maybe that would be an example. And the point lower down about enhancing the county farms estate, I was one of a number of councillors who were able to enjoy a trip around the county estate the other year and really enjoyed meeting our tenants. And just to confirm that as we seek to improve matters down the road, that they are engaging with them, because I didn't see that in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So obviously biodiversity net gain, BNG, is a legal requirement, and the minimum we have to achieve is 10%. But when government sort of brought in the BNG requirement, they wanted councils to aim for more than 10%. So we haven't, following feedback we've had internally, we didn't want to make that a sort of uplift, a mandatory policy within the council, because clearly there are some big implications, potentially cost implications of doing that. So that's why we've gone for the wording we have, but it's about seeking where we can within our developments, and that might be a trails development that requires planning permission, it might be a schools development, it might be a highways development, that where we're able to seek more than 10%, and we might be able to do that within the existing site, so it could actually be quite easy and cost effective to achieve that we do that. So that's why we very carefully worded this aspect of the policy around biodiversity net gain. Westwinch, I don't know if Graham wants to add anything, but that's subject to a planning permission, and BNG has been applied.
I'll just very briefly. Yeah, as Wendy's highlighted, biodiversity net gain is a key part of the application, and there's many documents within the planning application for that particular scheme which outlines both the biodiversity net gain, but also a whole raft of environmental measures and proposals which go hand in hand with delivering the scheme. So, as highlighted, fully taken account of, but it's not just biodiversity net gain, it's also all the other environmental aspects that tend to be included with schemes as well. So hopefully that helps.
Do you want to come back, Jim?
If I may, Chair, we've already seen the government take a step back on smaller sites with BNG, so I hope that as we go forward as a council, when we do exceed the 10%, that I see a press release coming in, the council has just done X that we can all be proud of, and just on the consulting with our tenants, please.
Yes, thank you. So if I can come on to County Farm. So yes, we absolutely work with our tenants. So there is an annual general meeting which we attend, and we promote how we can support tenants to help them to make environmental improvements on their land. Obviously that includes things like pollinators. We've got a pollinator strategy and how they can help us to deliver our pollinator strategy. Also looking at ponds, because they are a sort of key habitat feature as highlighted in the local nature recovery strategy. And in terms of delivering our Million Trees ambition, we work with them to help plant trees and hedgerows on our property. So yeah, we do have that relationship, and we'll continue to do that, because they're really important part, you know, as our tenants and land managers, they're really important to help us deliver our ambitions.
May I just say how much I welcome those answers. Thank you very much indeed.
And interesting that, again, the government's peeping on our future programme. The net gain area, currently 25 square metres, is hopefully at some point go up to 0.2 hectares, because we have one particular item which is so expensive we can't do it at the expense of the BNG. And hopefully it'll come within the 0.2 hectares. Chrissy.
Yeah, thank you. I can see there's an awful lot of hard work also done by officers here. I'd also like to make points about, you know, it's got right tree, right place, right time. And I've been learning a lot about trees of late and how hard they are to maintain. I also went to a very interesting talk on companion gardening and Mediterranean garden, sort of one, and trees come up on that. And the person delivering the talk was saying that actually nowadays we need to be thinking more about the future and climate change, and that we should actually be planting like Barcelona is now, because our climate will probably be like Barcelona. So start it now. And I wondered if we were taking that into consideration, because obviously they have far different trees to what we have. And I also, you know, and I have to say sort of locally we have Green Hearts who have said they'd like to be part of any strategy, which I thought was fantastic, because like 2 years ago they wouldn't have said anything, but now they really want to get involved in everything. And we've been doing blue highways, bee highways, and you know, and hedgehog alleys and everything. And it's just amazing. We've got orchards and everything, and everyone is really getting into this companion gardening. And I just wondered, sort of like, whether we could publicise more, like we do sometimes about other things, about how companion gardening works and how so much better it'll be for the climate. And actually, it looks more beautiful as well, because you've got nasturtiums alongside veg and things like that. And I just wondered, how do we decide the right tree, the right place, and the right time nowadays? And basically, with all these volunteer people going out, we're getting funding at the moment, but I can see a time when we won't be getting funding. In the future, I think we need the communities to be doing these things, and they are volunteers, but it still costs money to do these things as well. And I wondered, like, in the future, whether councils actually fund some of these when our funders no longer do.
Thank you. There's quite a lot in that question, so I'll try and cover all the points. It's absolutely fine. So yes, right tree, right time, right place, because we don't we don't maintain the trees we plant. We do look at failure rates, and we will replant where we can and where we can afford to. In terms of, what are we planting? We are continuing to plant native trees, native to Norfolk, and we obviously have our community tree nursery at Gresson Hall, which raises some of the stock we use. We've just extended our tree packs, so we have subsidised tree packs, so residents can come and buy trees off a cheaper rate they would be able to get elsewhere, and they're good quality trees to plant. So we just extended that. I've just so please do let your communities know about that, because that's also a really good way of being able to contribute. I don't think we're ready yet to be planting olive trees and maybe other European species, and would it be right for us to do that, because we're actually trying to promote our native species. But clearly we do look at that. We have another team within the Environment Service that is working closely with highways. We monitor tree health, and we work with highways to take appropriate action to manage those trees. And what they've done is actually they've got an amazing source of data, which is sort of nationally is we're leading the way. And what that has shown is that certain tree species are subject to disease. Some of those diseases are very much linked to our changes in weather and more extreme weather, hotter weather. And so we are able to predict what sort of species may have problems in the future. So we're certainly alive to that. I'll come on to the sort of companion gardening, and I think this more sits within local nature recovery strategy and how we deliver it. And very much we want to work with communities as part of that. We want to give the message that anybody, anywhere in Norfolk can do something for nature. And we have highlighted within the local nature recovery strategy, although the measures aren't mapped, we have said the importance of gardens and allotments in delivering improvements to biodiversity. And we are looking at ways that we can help communities to
to work with us and how we can help them to maybe equip them in a different way. So we're looking at opportunities around that at the moment. Obviously, members can use their own, and I can't remember what it's called because the name's just slipped out of my mind. The members fund. Sorry, Graham's going to help me out.
Local member fund.
Thank you. So we've rewritten the guidance around that. So you can use your local members fund to help support communities to do more for either access or for nature in your communities. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. 20 years ago, who would have thought we'd have English wine that's now acceptable? And we have 2 vineyards in this county that are exemplars of that. So sometimes foreign trees work, but not all of them. Brian, I've got next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 brief points, if I may. Firstly, to give the report a broad welcome. I think there's some good initiatives in place, and certainly the point that's just been made about using the local member fund to improve things still further, I think is very important. My 2 points really are, the report, I think, alludes to the fact that the implementation plan as it stands at the moment isn't fully costed, so there is at least some risk of unfunded obligations and a danger perhaps of some expectations that have been set not actually being realised. So my question would be, presumably there is an intention of producing a fully costed delivery plan at some stage. So could I have some assurance about that and the date at which that might occur? Second point is, again, I would be interested to know how you are seeking to establish a more sort of formal ongoing relationship with other local authorities, other partners and environmental agencies. I think the idea of setting up a sort of strong partnership framework will certainly help in terms of the delivery of the local nature strategy that's referred to in detail in the report, and ensure it's co-owned more effectively. And really following on from that, as a result of that, to ensure obviously that biodiversity and habitat restoration are developed alongside these partners and not in isolation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I think if you look at 176, page 176, the number of strategies, recovery strategies, action plans, there's at least 8 or 9 that we have joined up with this one. So I think that work across the things. The previous question you asked was fully costed.
Thank you. Yes, we've made it clear that whilst we haven't provided costs, we would deliver this because some of this is our statutory duty anyway. So it is included in county council budgets. But the strategy, you know, there are some indications of what we want to take forward, but obviously we don't know how small or large that is at the moment. So we haven't costed that. We have been clear it's within our existing financial envelope, but I would just say that the Environment Service actually brings in an awful lot of external funding that helps to deliver many of the outcomes we're seeking to deliver in the strategy. So we would continue to seek external funding for those initiatives. I don't think I could give a date when we could come back with a costed plan, but we can certainly have a look at doing that, yes.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously like to acknowledge the immense amount of work that officers have put into this one. Having said that, this reminds me very much of a proposal and a report that came before us just recently when I offered the suggestion that probably it was premature. And the reason I say that is because at point 1.3, strategic decision to draft for consideration to complement the thematic pillars of the climate strategy. I raised this over a previous document. It wasn't that many months ago that in this very chamber a motion was passed for us to review our climate strategy. And it just seems a little bit awkward to me that we're bringing documents forwards on the basis of a policy that is required to be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the environment policy and strategy, not the climate policy and strategy. Obviously, this works alongside our climate policy and strategy. Our current environment strategy is woefully out of date, so it is one of the last policies to be updated as part of our corporate framework. So I think it's important we shouldn't delay it. So yeah, I think that's all I can say.
Come back, Chris, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. No, I appreciate that, that, Wendy, but you know, it clearly says here to complement the thematic pillars of the climate strategy. If the climate strategy, as reviewed, looks entirely different to the current climate strategy, then that obviously would have an impact on the document we're looking at now.
If I could just add, I think the biggest thing that's changed since we last brought this forward was the government legislation. So I think we've certainly referenced those big changes to the Environment Act and things like the Local Nature Recovery Strategy. So I think the policy is a good and fit for purpose one. I think if there's anything significant that happens elsewhere, we can always keep things under review, but it is overdue an update. And I think the legislation, if nothing else, would require us to take this forward as it's proposed at the moment, both policy and strategy. Thank you.
When was that government update? 2021, was it?
2021.
Due for an update, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
Thanks, Chair. Just one final thing. Yeah, very much appreciate that. But the cynic in me suggests that we had a similar response, no disrespect to yourself, with this previous document. Basically, it's 11th hour position, and we're overdue. For you're going to have it. You know, paraphrasing that in my own way, which just seems that puts us in an impossible position.
Suppose your answer's still the same, Steve? Yeah, okay. Anybody else want to speak? Catherine?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I appreciate that this is sort of alongside the climate strategy and the climate action plan and the emissions dashboard and so on. But it did seem to me that it's a bit odd that among the strategic objectives, we don't have reference to carbon emissions and climate considerations as part of strategy, since, you know, obviously emissions from peat land and from farming activities and so on are integral to the way in which we manage farmland. And the other thing that seems to me, I mean, obviously we've got the things that we can do with the county farms, but we do, it seems to me, need some kind of strategy for how we can manage farm pollution, the contribution from effluent and intensive factory farming to waterways pollution and other forms of pollution that are a result of farming activity across Norfolk, not just on county farms. And obviously we don't want to make the county farms kind of put at a disadvantage relative to farms that don't have constraints that they have to meet. So the ecological land management and that stuff needs, it seems to me, to be very much more conscious. I mean, I appreciate that you've got a big job on your hands, but conscious of the immense contribution that farming makes to pollution of the environment.
Thank you. Yes, we have, there's a few things in there, so I'm going to come on to sort of water quality first. So we have set out in the policy that where possible on our own estate, we would manage water to lessen flood risk and improve water quality. So we've definitely got that ambition. So this strategy is for our own activities and to guide our own decisions rather than it applies to the wider Norfolk. But rest assured, we are working very closely with partners on those issues as well. So this strategy can only look at our own estate rather than the wider one. I think the role of the climate strategy is to set those sort of emission targets, but I appreciate, you know, some of those are related to our own estate. And what we've done within the strategy is we have indicated where there are wider economic, environmental and social benefits from delivering the strategy, and that includes climate mitigation and adaptation, because we recognise that, for example, planting trees is a great way of mitigating for climate.
Recommendations? The committee asked to review, comment on and scrutinise the environment strategy. Subject to any amendments following scrutiny, recommend that Cabinet endorse and adopt the environment strategy and subject to any amendments following scrutiny, recommend the full Council to approve and adopt the environment policy, replacing the environment on the current Council's policy framework. All. Thank you. So, future work programme always seems to have a big future work programme. I've got one item that I want to put before members. So, in the March one, we've got promoting, reduce, reuse, recycle in Norfolk, and includes moving towards zero waste. And my note says, it may be better examined by committee in July, as it will include part of the policy framework. It makes more sense for the item to be scrutinised and updated once, rather than scrutinised by this committee in March, and again by potentially different set of members in May. So that seems a sensible thing to do, to move that forward. Does everybody agree with that? Yep. And then the other thing, given that we now have some space, Tristan is going to this bit, as we have some space in March, and we need to fill it. We can't go empty.
Thank you, Chair, and I think it's also to thank members thus far for what they've work programmed, because I think today is a good example of how the discussions that come from what you've work programmed can be helpful for both officers and members, and basically a big thank you for what you've put on thus far. So yeah, I would say that that there's two things for me to flag. The first one is that you might have seen Better Together for Norfolk has been reviewed, and that's their cabinet decision. There might be items relating to that review for this committee to then look at and scrutinise. So I would encourage committee members to take a look at that, not necessarily today, but take a look at what's in Better Together for Norfolk and consider whether there's an item to bring back to this committee. And then, as Councillor Thompson says, we've got two good-looking items for March. It's a request committee to whether there's any additional scoping we'd like to do around those items so that we have a clear brief for what comes to the next meeting. And indeed, if there is another item that committee wishes to add, then we would look to move that as well. So over to committee to consider those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There are a couple of points. I know we did potholes. Maybe it was just the last meeting, but you know they continue to be in the headlines. There was a fatality, not in Norfolk, elsewhere today, and still I go to parish councils, and I'm afraid I'm not able to say to them that we are happy with our progress. At that meeting, I spoke about that, and it was implied that I was suggesting that those people people are complaining on Facebook and other social media. You know, people are reporting potholes. They're not satisfied with being repaired. I'm not satisfied with the speed they're being repaired. And I just don't want us to wait too long, please, before we look at that again. I mentioned paths and pathways to you. It may be that is a split responsibility between the districts and the boroughs, so I may pull back on that slightly. And also, it must be nearly a year since we had the cost-cutting exercises of turning off lights on major roads, and we were told that they would examine the results of that experiment and look at the safety aspect. But there's lots of knock-ons from turning off roads. Just last night, this morning, a parish councillor resigned because he couldn't get to a meeting because he came off his bike where there are no longer lights. He had his lights, but didn't see the branch on the road. So there are other consequences. We may not get back to officers here, but I do think I would like to see that come back to us at some stage in some guise so that we have some input on this turning off of lights on roads, which was, at the time, an economic decision rather than a safety one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Not to cast any shade on Jim's lights, but TROs, that seems to be very important. We have a better understanding about how they come about. The Director of Highways will be familiar with the observations I've previously sent him when I've basically been the quality of control on TROs, which obviously that's not the role of the local member. So I think it's important that we actually not only understand their makeup, maybe historically some of the older ones are worded differently to the ones that we might put out today. That may well affect the enforcement. And then, of course, we've all had the issues of signage and diversions, and we've all probably battled with trying to improve those and trying to fathom out how they come about. Presumably you've been like me and not as successful as maybe you would hope, so maybe the starting point is with the TRO. So I think that would be a very important one for us to bring forward urgently, especially for the people of Outwell, I might add. Cheers.
Hopefully. On the March forward plan, March agenda, there's already an item which is titled Process for Communicating Planned Roadworks to Residents. So if it's acceptable to committee, it would probably be sensible to broaden that out to a more general streetworks and roadworks update. Obviously, we'll still cover what was identified under the original title, but I think in terms of the TRO side of things, that's in relation to utility companies working on the highway. Have I got that correct? So are you including the speed limit changes within that? Because they're TROs with the utilities and streetworks, yeah. So if we broaden that paper out so as it provides a wider update on all things streetworks and roadworks, that hopefully covers.
You can hear me, I've got a big mouth. Perhaps we should include the TROs we referred to earlier within that, such as the ones that may or may not be on the zigzags outside of schools.
It would probably be sensible to do that as a separate paper. So as we focus on the street works, just to make sure we cover off the title that was previously agreed with this committee. So that could be another subsequent one if that's acceptable.
It seems that there two TROs are two slightly different things in there, and the roadworks one fitting in with that would be, enhanced. Members agree if we extend that for TROs for roadworks, etc. And then we'll take on board the last point you made about TROs and the school zigzags. Are members content with that? Anybody else got any jobs they want looking at? No? So, I think we've done really well. And I've won my bet, Jim. So, at 12:19, thank you for your time and your enthusiasm and your questions. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And officers, well, well done.